From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN Noon News.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on the Noon News. I'm Augusta McDonald in for Diane Parker. Miller has our spring forecast, plus St. Patrick's Day celebrations in Butte leave workers literally shoveling garbage out of the streets. But first, our top stories. A Billings lawmaker is working to limit marijuana advertising statewide. Representative Carrie Seekins-Crow is sponsoring a bill to prohibit dispensaries from promoting their business or brand in print, over TV and radio, or using a billboard. Seekins-Crow argues ads have gone beyond what was intended when the legislature set regulations on recreational dispensaries. But her bill is drawing opposition from marijuana businesses and the State Newspaper Association.
That's what we do, is we say this is how we want this to look. We have regulated this industry, and this is part of the regulations with this.
What you have then is a cycle of the law getting stricter, and the people who getting around it keep getting around it, and the people who are compliant are just consistently suffering the consequences of stricter laws.
The Senate Business, Labor, and Economic Affairs Committee heard testimony on the bill yesterday, but did not take any action. New information on the hostage situation and fatal shooting in St. Regis over the weekend. Mineral County Undersheriff Wayne Cashman tells MTN News the situation started Saturday when a man and woman who were involved in an armed robbery in Osborne, Idaho, drove to St. Regis. When they arrived at the travel center off I-90, the woman ran to a nearby motel where police detained her, but Cashman says the man started walking up to people in the parking lot, showing his gun and demanding they give him their car keys. When people refused, he ran into the travel center, grabbed a hostage, and dragged him outside. Cashman says that's when police arrived on scene, but the suspect allegedly pushed the hostage down, shot him in the back, and then, based on surveillance footage shown to MTN, he ran towards the restaurant. The surveillance video shows the suspect trying to get inside the restaurant. He was then fatally shot by law enforcement. Undersheriff Cashman says the hostage is in critical but stable condition, and the names of those involved have not yet been released. We're learning new details on Saturday's standoff in the Billings Heights as well. 13-year veteran of the force, Mike Urena, was shot during that incident. He's recovering in the hospital in stable condition after a bullet hit him in the abdomen below his body armor. 57-year-old Mary Whitecrane is behind bars for shooting Urena, along with a number of other crimes carried out from inside of her barricaded home. Chief St. John is praising officers for resolving the situation without a loss of life.
We're here to preserve life, property secondary. And unfortunately, you have one individual that held a neighborhood hostage for many hours.
Initially, police responded to Whitecrane's home after a call came in claiming she was shooting into neighboring houses. It took law enforcement teams ripping the sidewalls off of the trailer, then a blast from a fire hose to get her to surrender. And in Great Falls, a man was taken into custody yesterday in Cascade County after a standoff with police. Law enforcement were called to a home in Great Falls around midnight for a disturbance where a caller said one person had been shot. Police identified Anthony Wills as a suspect. He was later found at a different residence but refused to leave the house for about 5 hours. He surrendered around 11 a.m. without any injuries to himself or police. The person who was shot did not have life-threatening injuries. This is the second shooting incident in Great Falls over the past few days. A murder suspect died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound in Pondera County after fleeing from Great Falls on Friday. And that's a look at some of today's top stories.
Happy first full day of spring, but winter-like conditions here locally. I'll tell you more about that here in just a second, but let's take a look at the U.S. conditions today. Parts of California and the Southwest, we have high winds, heavy rain, and heavy mountain snow possible today. Great Basin, Central and Southern Rockies, widespread rain and heavy mountain snow through Thursday morning. And portions of the northern plains and upper Midwest, we're going to have several little rounds, little pulses of energy coming through this. So it's going to give us a couple shots of light to moderate snowfall through Thursday morning as well. Here locally across the region, that area of low pressure that's been giving us some snow, especially central and eastern parts of the state, pulling away, taking the moisture with it. But we still have more rain and snow and cooler temperatures in the forecast. We'll take a look coming up.
Street drug users are using fentanyl test strips to see if their cocaine, for example, is laced with the deadly drug. But there's a problem in Montana's legal system, and many say it needs to be addressed as soon as possible to save lives and prevent overdoses. MTN's Diane Parker explains.
A quick drive around town will show you that you can find drug testing kits here in Montana just like this at about any local box store, a grocery store, pharmacy, even ones like this at your local dollar store. Now, what you may not know is that these are actually illegal here in Montana, and that has law enforcement officials and state lawmakers working to make these legal, especially with the rise of fentanyl overdoses in Montana.
One death is too many.
It's pretty imperative that we make sure that these test strips are not illegal.
But right now, they are illegal due to what lawmakers call code clutter. That has Billings State Representative Katie Zolnikov working hard in Helena to strike the word test from a long list of items considered drug paraphernalia.
There are people across the state who are unknowingly breaking the law.
In Montana, criminal possession of drug paraphernalia is a misdemeanor punishable by up to 6 months in prison and or an up to $500 fine.
From just individual consumers to law enforcement officers to, in some cases, business owners, if they are wanting to administer drug tests, they're using these drug tests. It's technically considered drug paraphernalia.
There's a lot of folks breaking the law, but it isn't enforced. After checking with multiple law enforcement agencies, Montana Highway Patrol, Billings Police, and the Yellowstone County Sheriff's Office, I found exactly 0 citations on record.
Usually the people that we're coming across are people that are actually distributing this drug, and we're not seeing the test strips and the individuals that we're arresting throughout Montana.
Meaning moms and dads testing their naughty teens can breathe easy. A woman with a date rape drug test in her purse won't go to jail. But when it comes to public health, supporters of HB 437 say the code clutter has got to go before more people die from fentanyl overdoses.
Enabling people to possess the strips without being subject to criminal penalties will allow people access to an easy to administer and affordable means to determine if their drugs have been adulterated with fentanyl.
The CDC's Stop Overdose campaign encourages the use of fentanyl test strips, even giving instructions on how to crush pills, add water, and dip a testing strip. But back in Montana, Yellowstone County's Public Health Department says we are not supplying them at this time because of the law. Rimrock, the region's largest drug treatment center, isn't supplying them either, but says it supports HB 437 as a risk mitigation tool.
Pills that mimic other prescribed drugs but are laced with illicit fentanyl have been identified in Montana,
contributing to an unprecedented number of fentanyl overdoses statewide, including 8 in January alone.
House Bill 437 is past second reading.
Now on to the state Senate after passing the House unanimously with no opponents. In Billings, Diane Parker, MTN News.